In today's video, I want to share with you 7 tips to be able to improve your cash flow in your Amazon reselling business. Now, this will also apply to other businesses as well, but I specifically want to talk about improving your cash flow in an Amazon business. I run an Amazon business. I've been running it for over 10 years. In the last 30 days, I've sold about $70,000 and I've made about $14,000 profit. I made a video the other day breaking down my net profit so you can kind of see, all the expenses and all the overhead. So if you haven't checked that out, be sure to check out that video. But I get the question all the time, Steve, how can I improve my cash flow? I'm selling a bunch of items, maybe you're doing traditional OA, you're doing Amazon to Amazon book flips or eBay to Amazon, you're selling a bunch of items, good ROIs, good profits, but at the end of the day, you don't have a lot of money left over to pay yourself. And I want to share with you 7 big ideas that can help you to be able to improve your cash flow. And most of these, except one of them, I've applied to my business. One of them you'll understand in a bit when I talk about it, why I don't personally do it. But let's get into this because cash flow is the name of the game. If you want to quit your job, if you want to be able to have an income that you can live off of, to be able to go on vacations or to be able to, again, replace your salary, whatever your goal is, everyone has a different goal of reselling and selling on Amazon. You've got a cash flow. You could literally run a business that makes a crap ton of profit and you look amazing on the books, but you might be reinvesting back into your business. You might have a bunch of different issues and overhead, and I'm going to talk about it, that could be holding back your ability to pay yourself. Again, if you're a new seller and maybe you're only doing $500 to $1,000 a month, you're probably not going to be able to connect and relate to this because you're probably going to thrift stores and library sales, flipping items for 3, 4, 500% ROI, and your cost of goods is so low that you don't have a cash flow issue. But once you start to grow your business and you take on products where the cost of goods is much more, you're not paying $1 or $2 for an item, you're paying 40, 50, 60 bucks. Your margins aren't 400%. They're, maybe down at 20 or 30%. You start to, run into some of these struggles. So let's dive into this video. And again, if you're new to this channel, my name's Steve. I've been reselling for over 12 years. I've been doing online arbitrage for 4.5 years. Last year, I sold about 6,000 products for over $700,000 and made about $175,000 profit and paid myself $130,000 after reinvesting back in the business after all was said and done. So let's get into tip number 1. Stop buying items that are problematic, okay? Now, the more you resell on Amazon, you're gonna start to learn about brands that are problematic. Maybe they send you a bunch of threatening letters, right? Maybe there's certain products where you get high pricing errors all the time. Maybe there's items that always seem to go stranded. Maybe there's products that the return rate is just very, very high. You need to start to identify these problematic products or these categories, but specifically like problematic ASINs that are just maybe getting returned all the time, or they're always getting stranded, or high pricing errors. You need to take time to reflect on the items that you're purchasing, because if you're buying the same item over and over again, and maybe the return rate is 20, 25, 30%. I actually had this. I ran a bunch of reports recently, and there was one Verizon item that I was reselling, and the return rate was like 45%. And my team and I, we missed it. I mean, we were literally just like, it was silly. Like, I felt idiotic. Like, we were literally just buying and reselling this replen over and over again, and we didn't realize how many returns we had. And yeah, it was nasty. I had plenty of examples of making these mistakes, but your cash flow is going to get killed if you're constantly reinvesting in products that get stranded and get shipped back to you, and then you have to liquidate it, or it gets shipped back to you and you have to send it back in again, or it's always getting returned, right? Because you're getting killed with the return shipping. The item's like typically like a big loss, or maybe it's a return from a customer all the time and it's unsellable. Now you have to liquidate it on eBay. That's a killer for cash flow. So you need to make sure you take time to reflect upon these different issues. Of course, it takes work, but it's very, very important. Okay. Tip number 2. One of the things that I make sure that I do in my business is I'm trying to focus on products that turn within 1 to 2 months. Okay. I know for different models, like some booksellers, they're okay with sitting on books for 6 months, 7 months, 10 months, 12 months, but I'm doing online arbitrage. I'm paying up for items. Typically my return on investment is 50 to 60% or more. I don't have 100, 200, 300% ROIs like some thrifters or maybe some A to A book flippers. So I need to turn my inventory. So, if you're playing in the sandbox of having like 30, 40, 50, 60, 70% return on investments and you're spending up, for your inventory doing online arbitrage. I'm not talking about thrifting because the stuff's so cheap you can sit on it for a while. But if you're doing like eBay to Amazon or, some of these other arbitrage models, and again, your ROI is around 30, 40, 50%, try to focus on getting those products products to sell within 1 to 2 months, right? So you could make sure that you're really keeping an eye on the repricing, have a good repricing strategy, making sure that you're focusing on products that have a good historical sales data, right? Like a good track record of selling, checking the buy box statistics, making sure, you're not buying products where Amazon's coming on the listing and hogging up the whole buy box, or, making sure that you're researching the offer count, before you buy an item, because maybe the offer count skyrocketed and now the price is going to probably tank and you're going to sit on it for a long time. All of these things hurt your cash flow because now your money is tied up in that product, okay? So the way that you make money in a reselling business is turning the products, getting them moving, getting them flipping, getting them sold, and then you take the profits out, you put it back into your inventory, and eventually you set the goalpost to a point where maybe you're only spending a certain amount every single month and you've got enough profit to pay yourself and then obviously reinvest back into the business, so on and so forth. So focus on buying items that turn within 1 to 2 months. Number 3, focus on products with a strong ROI. Obviously, this is like duh, like, you want to focus on products that have a good ROI. But I tell you right now, I used to have a lot more cash flow issues in my business when I was only flipping items that were 25, 30% ROI. When you start focusing on higher end items like 50%, 60%, 70%, and doing your due diligence in terms of the offer count, making sure, these aren't problematic items, right? Making sure these items really do move. I'm telling you right now, you're going to have a lot more cash flow. So obviously, if you're making more profit at the end of the day, you're going to have extra, wiggle room in terms of like after you reinvest back into your products and back into the inventory, you're going to have more money available to pay yourself after, paying all of the various expenses. And I'll put a screenshot on this video where I'll break down and I'll show you my last 30 days where I sold about $70,000. You could see all my expenses, the Amazon fees, all my overhead, and how $70,000, it comes down to about $14,000 in net profit. Now that's not a cash flow statement. You have to understand that's different because cash flow is going to pertain to how much money has actually hit your bank account on a certain period of time, right? Because I can make $14,000 net profit, but you have to understand I have money that is in inventory that's inbound to Amazon. I have inventory that hasn't sold yet. I have money that Amazon is holding. I have payments that Amazon's going to be paying me, right? So when it comes to cash flow and really breaking all that down, I highly recommend everybody creates a cash flow statement where you're tracking everything that comes in and then everything that's going out, and you can see your cash flow on a month-to-month basis. I mean, run it through ChatGPT, go on YouTube. There's a bunch of videos about it. But, for me, when I moved my minimum ROI from 30 up to 50 to 60%, it really helped me cash flow because nothing else changed. Like you don't have to change like focusing on different products and, focusing on reducing your refunds and different things like that. If your ROI is 40, 50% higher and everything else stays the same, you're going to have a lot more cash flow. Of course, you still want to work on your return rate and the problematic things that I talked about, but focusing on a stronger ROI is definitely, something that we should all be aiming towards. And now you might be thinking to yourself like, well, easier said than done. There's only so much product that's out there. Well, in my business, I can only speak for my business. I flip items from eBay to Amazon. I use a tool called Replen Catcher, and we make a lot of our deals from making best offers on eBay. So we just set the bar a little bit higher. And the funny thing is when you set the bar higher and you tell your team or you set a standard with yourself and you're like, I am not going after products less than 50%, you find a way. You start to find like creative ways to find more inventory. Like you set up new systems, new protocols and procedures. And, we just set a new standard. And yeah, it was tough in the beginning, but if you set a new standard and, you say, I'm not going back, you will find a way if you're creative and you're able to work hard. Number 4, and this is something that I haven't done, but if you're really struggling with cash flow and maybe you're in debt, right? And you're, playing around with credit cards and you're really struggling to pay off your credit cards. One tip as well, and I'm not a big fan of going into debt, is the Plum card, American Express Plum card. That's 60-day terms. So instead of like having a 30-day cycle with like the Capital One Spark card, which is what I use, you could use the Plum and you'll have 60-day terms. But one of the best things you can do for cash flow is fulfillment by merchant, FBM. You can increase your cash flow so much more by being an FBM seller because your cash flow gets crushed when you're buying an item and you have to send it to Amazon. You have to wait 2, 3, 4 weeks for it to get checked in, right? That sucks. And then you have to wait for it to sell and you got to wait 2 weeks. Like you could literally sell your items so much faster as a merchant seller because once you receive the product, you can list it up, have it for sale and sell it within a day or two. Whereas it would take me 2, 3, 4 weeks for it to get checked in. And then there's FC transfers, so on and so forth. I personally don't do it because I'm trying to build a lifestyle business and I'm blessed enough to have enough capital. And, I've been in this business for long enough where I'm not having cash flow issues right now, right? I'm good. I have other income streams. So for me, like Amazon's more of a long-term game at the end of the year. I'm not like really super duper concerned with cash flow like on a week to week or the first couple of months of the business. It's a long-term thing. I've been in this game long enough. But if you're struggling with cash flow, merchant fulfilling is the best thing that you could do. Just make sure that the merchants are winning the buy box. You can easily check that on Keepa to see if the merchants are winning the buy box, and you could run some tests and see how long it takes to sell. But fulfillment by merchant is one of the best things you could do for cash flow. It's just obviously a lot more work. Okay, number 5. One of the killers of your cash flow, and this killed my cash flow, and this is, I guess it's not really a tip, but maybe just a warning. You know, a lot of people watch my videos and they're like, damn, like Steve, like he's so hands off. Like he's got a prep center. He doesn't have the items shipped to his house anymore. He doesn't have to touch them. He doesn't have to see them. He doesn't have to box them up. Like everything goes to a prep center, and a prep center is amazing. I use Little Owl Prep in Ohio, and it's really allowed me to scale and have a lot more freedom and a lot more happiness and not having stuff coming to my house and pissing off my girlfriend and dealing with throwing away boxes, and I don't have to buy all these supplies and see all these products, and it was a lot more stressful, right? But just keep in mind, a prep center is gonna put stress on your cash flow because a prep center is never gonna care about your business as much as you. I'm sorry. I love my prep center. They're great. I'll never go to anybody else, but I'd be lying to you if I told you my items get processed faster using a prep center versus when I used to do it. When I used to do it, I would get it in and get it out because it was my business. It was my cash flow. But a prep center is gonna have other clients. They're busy. I feel like, I don't want to say I feel bad, but I feel like one business I would never want to do is run a prep center because it's a stressful business. You're like literally like dealing with people's products and people get worked up and pissed off. But if you're like wanting to live a lifestyle business like I am with my Amazon business, just know it is going to hurt your cash flow a bit, and it takes some time to kind of get that cycle going. And for me, it really took a good like 2.5 months for my cash flow to get un-effed just because it was so much slower. Sometimes it could take 2, 3, 4 weeks. I had a time recently where it was like almost a month for them to send out my stuff. I don't know what happened. I've heard of this with other prep centers as well, but I wrote down on my sheet right here, prep centers will slow down your cash flow. For me, it's a worthwhile trade, but something to keep in mind, it's an extra 1 to 3 weeks or more for items to get processed. So again, that's not really I guess maybe the tip is just do it on your own if you're really crying for cash flow, right? That's a good YouTube name, crying for cash flow. But yeah, I love having my prep center. I love Little Owl Prep. Frank's been amazing, but definitely puts a little bit of pressure on cash flow. Okay, so maybe consider doing it yourself, merchant fulfilling. Number 6, double down on your replens. These items, right? These ASINs will always sell faster because you're working with much more internal historical data. What's the difference between internal historical data versus just reading historical data on Keepa? Keepa, I mean, you can take a look and see what's happened with other sellers. You can, hope and pray that it's being tracked correctly. But when you actually sell an item 4, 5, 10, 15 times, right? That's a replen. That's an item you've sold before. You really have a good idea. Are there high pricing errors? What's the refund rate? Do the items get checked in quickly? How long does it take to sell? Does this listing, this ASIN tank a lot? Is there a lot of competition? Like, what's your actual feel for that product that you're flipping, right? I call that internal historical data. So if you want to improve your cash flow, double, triple, quadruple down on reselling products that you've sold before, right? With the tool that I've developed that, hundreds of other people use as well, called Replen Catcher. This helps you to not only be able to source items from our live stream that maybe you've never sold before that you don't know about. Replen Catcher tracks over 2 million products, but with Replen Catcher, what we do in our business, most of the items that we're sourcing are replens. So we have a huge list of products that we've sold before, and we've uploaded this to Replen Catcher. It's really easy. It takes like 2 minutes, and then it'll track our best replens all day long on eBay. And when we sell out, we just go in, we replenish our inventory, bada bing, bada boom, the profits are coming soon. I mean, it is fantastic. Now, I'm not here to tell you to do eBay to Amazon. Maybe that's not your model. That's fine. I can only speak about what I'm doing, but I'll tell you right now, my cash flow improved so much more. My return rate went down. I was more profitable. I was more confident in buying certain items. And, I'm not big into buying a ton of quantity. It's just not my model. I really go wide versus deep in terms of my inventory. But there were some products I went very deep on, and for me, very deep's like 5 or 10, right? So, I'm eBay to Amazon, so that's deep for me. But some of these items I'm spending $800 on for 7 of them, right? And then flipping them for $250, $300, right? Double down on your replens, right? Double down on internal historical data. That is such a huge advantage, right, for you. So that's number 6. And then last but not least, if you want to improve your cash flow, stop buying too much quantity of inventory, right? I know sometimes a great deal comes up and it's exciting and you're like, this is a 60, 70% ROI. if you have internal historical data on this and you know it takes a month or two for each one to sell, if you buy 6, you're screwing your cash flow because now you have all your money stuck up in this inventory. And again, I know if you're going to thrift stores and garage sales, blah, 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 you're spending a buck or two, like this doesn't apply to you guys. I'm talking about people who are, doing mostly like online arbitrage, retail arbitrage, maybe even wholesale. Like if you buy too much of a specific ASIN and it doesn't sell, or it's problematic, or the returns are high, or, you're sitting on the inventory for 5 or 6 months, that hurts your cash flow because your money is sitting in the inventory instead of working and flipping and turning and bringing back, right? Your little soldiers bringing back extra profit. So the name of the game with cash flow is to reduce returns, right? To get your inventory to move really good. The higher the ROI, the faster it flips, the less problems you have, high pricing errors, stranded inventory. Like this all just comes down to you putting time and effort into the business. And it's so funny, like the amount of people who, say you can't make money with Amazon, or it doesn't work, or this or that. And it's like, you're not treating it like a business. So many people, like, they don't treat their Amazon business like a business. They treat it like a little hobby. They don't know their return rates. They're not spending $20 on Sellerboard or, $50 on GoToLister to be able to list your items faster and, see profit analytics. But I mean, Sellerboard is a really great tool. For $20, you can literally put your cost of goods in for all your products. You can put in all your overhead. You can literally break down your net profit, right? The more you track, the more you manage, the more insightful you are with all the numbers in the business, the better decisions you can make, the more you're going to be able to increase your cash flow. Had a coaching call the other day with 2 great guys, young guys are doing like $4,000 or $5,000 a month. Big shout out to you guys. They were killing it, but I don't think, they had Sellerboard, but they didn't have a cash flow statement. And it didn't seem like they really truly understood like where the cash was going and, what items were the most problematic. Like with Sellerboard, you can dive into Sellerboard. You can really get a good idea of what items are the most problematic that are, the highest return rates, right? Go into your reports in Amazon and download a 12-month report and see what items, are really causing a bunch of problems and issues. Like pay attention to the items that are stranded, right? Pay attention to the items that are high risk of IP complaints and counterfeits. I mean, there's a lot that goes into this business and there's a lot that goes into cash flow. This is the toughest part of the business. Anybody could buy a freaking item and flip it and make a profit and make a couple $100, $1,000. But if you want to replace your income, if you really want to make $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a month net profit, like if you want to pay yourself $10,000 a month, you've got to treat this business like a business, right? Not like a hobby, not like a little toy, right? That you got out of a 25-cent machine. You got to really take it serious. But yeah, that's my spiel. Let me know if this video helped. If you guys have any more tips, I'm sure I missed a whole bunch to be able to increase your cash flow, to be able to better your cash flow, to be able to pay yourself. Let me know down below in the comments. But also, one last thing I want to mention is you're going to have to pay your dues, right? If you don't have a ton of capital, if you're only starting off with a couple $100, a couple $1,000, if you're looking to build up a business that makes $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 profit, the least amount of money you have, the longer it's going to take for you to cash flow. Like if you could spend a whole bunch of money right off of the bat, you're going to be able to cash flow faster because I mean, it's a capital intensive game. The more capital you have, but if you're in debt, you don't have a lot of resources, you don't have a lot of money, it's going to take quite a bit of time. And that's why you really want to make sure you're flipping items fast, good ROI, strong ROIs, maybe stay away from the 20, 30%, stay away from the problematic items, turn your money, reinvest for the first 6 to 12 months, and then maybe start paying yourself. I know people don't want to hear it, but it's the reality. I know this is YouTube 2025 is just the land of fake gurus and BS and nonsense. People don't even run businesses and they're not even profitable. They're just selling courses. They don't even know their numbers, right? You ask them their numbers, they're like, well, here's my orange bars. It means nothing. Your orange bars mean absolutely nothing in this business. What are you actually making at the end of the day and paying yourself? So that's all I've got. Appreciate you guys. Much love, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.